StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we're not done. You get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one framework, one philosophy, one mindset, one approach. We wrote a book on the topic, but you can get it at workonyourgamebook.com, and you're listening to the daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to extract value from your past experiences. And the reason why this topic is brought up, this is targeted especially towards those of you who are looking to build a brand, especially build a brand around your personality, build a brand around your experiences, build a brand around, as we touched on yesterday, around your story, around the things that you've been through, and you want to share those things with the world and get them out to everyone else out there through, and you want to brand it with that secret sauce, that flavor of your personal experience. And the reason why this matters so much is because your personal experience can't be copied. Now, if you come up with a framework or a philosophy or some topic or some subject that you teach, somebody can go listen to it and learn it and maybe try to make a cheap knockoff, cheap imitation of what you talk about. And trust me, in 16 plus years of being on the internet, I've had many people make cheap imitations of stuff that I talk about. None of them lasted and none of them succeeded at it, but they all tried. But with your personal story, nobody can say that they've been through what you've been through. So that's why extracting value from your past experiences means so much. Now, before I go any further into this introduction, I want to let you know I have a text number where you can text me and let me know the most valuable thing or things you get from today's episode or any other episode, or ask me a question about anything that you want and get exclusive stuff that I'm only sending to my text message community. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. So send me a text as you're listening to this here today or right now. Again, the topic is extracting value from your past experiences. Listen, you lived a lot of life to this point. No matter what your age is, you have lived a lot of life. Just take your age in years and multiply it by 365 days. That equals a lot of living. All right, well, can we all agree that that's a lot? All right, so today, what we're going to talk about is how you can get maximum value from that life that you have lived up to this point, and at the same time, not allow that time, all those days, those thousands of days that have passed by in your life, not allow it to be empty time that just pass by aimlessly and there's no value to be extracted. Every situation you go through in life, there's value to be gained from it, even if it's something that you didn't want, especially the things that you didn't want. There's a ton of value to be gotten from that. And as I get into these points, you're going to understand exactly what I mean. And of course, the things that you do want, that you did want, and you're happy about, and you would love for those things to happen again, there's value to be gotten from those as well. That one you probably already thought about, but also the situations that you didn't want, there's value to get from those too. But there's a framework, there's a formula to extracting that value. Today, I'm going to tell you what that is, and you can start using this to go back and examine every year of your life. From where you are today, going backwards, examine every year of your life, extract as much value as you can from those situations, and then you can start using those on the front line of your story or your brand or whatever it is you're going to put out there. And again, we're talking about extracting the value from your situations, not just telling the situation, which is the story, but extracting the value, which is the point. And I gave you that whole framework of point story application not too long ago. Let me tell you what episode that was. That was episode number 1739, how to teach anything, the point story application framework. So if you didn't listen to that episode just a few weeks back, again, point story application framework. What is the point? The value that you got. What is the story? Then you tell people what happened. Then the application, how can they actually use it? So that point in that application, those are the work that you have to do. The story you already know. Now, you don't have to do work to have a story, but you do have to do work to have a point and to have the application. And that's why the people who are able to create the point in the application, create the framework, are infinitely more valuable than just people who have a story, because every human being on the planet has a story. Our homeless person standing on the corner begging for change has a story. So if that's all you have, what makes you useful to anybody? It's the point. What somebody should get from the story and the application, what they can do differently in their own lives based on what you went through That's what makes it valuable, and that is work on your end. So today we're going to talk about a little bit of that work, extracting the value. So now you have the point and maybe even an application to go around the story. So this episode goes hand in hand with that episode. Again, that's number 1739. Listen to that one and this one together, and you'll understand a lot. Point number one. Topic once again today is how to extract value from your past experiences. What do or did most people admire about something that you went through in your past? Now, some of us have richer pasts than others. If you've had several different careers, or you've been in several different businesses, or you've had several different businesses yourself, what are the things that people most admired about the things that you've done in the past, or the things that you've been through in the past, or maybe something that you're doing right now? What do people seem to always mention? What do people always talk about? What do people always bring up? Or they seem to be asking about the most? What are they most interested in when it comes to what you did or what you're doing right now in your life? And the reason why this question matters so much, and whatever the answers are, you should write these down. There will probably be multiple answers. Understand that the things that people admire in or about you are the things that they often don't have themselves and wish that they did have. That's why they admire it in you, because if they had it, then it wouldn't be that. I mean, they might appreciate it, but they don't need it because they already got it. Now, they notice it in you and they might respect it, but they don't need it. The things that people admire the most often, I've noticed, are the things that they don't have, but they wish that they did. Now, if they don't have it and they don't want it, then they probably don't care. But if they don't have it and they do want it, then those are the things they pay attention to the most. Now, understand that this requires the art of communication. And understand, again, communication is more listening than it is talking. This is noticing the things that are not being said. This is picking up on nonverbal cues, everybody. Because most human beings, in my experience, again, and maybe it's just me, but many human beings are not always so keen on telling you all the time what they admire in you. And they're not so keen on telling you all the time what you had that they don't have, because that puts them in a position of weakness, puts them in a position of one down. But it is there. It may be going through their minds, even if they're not saying it out of their mouths, but the nonverbal cues will tell you some things if you are paying attention. And that's a big if for some of us. Note what people seem to be drawn to most about you. What is it about you that seems to get people's attention? Is it your career when they find out about it? Is it your associations? Is it the way that you talk? Is it the way that you dress? Is it the way that you speak? What is it about you that seems to be drawing the most intrigue from other people? It is your job to really notice this. Again, picking up on the nonverbal cues of other people, because most of the time people won't just say it out loud to you. Maybe you'll get few and far between will tell you, hey, this is what I'm most intrigued about you. This is what I like most about you. This is what got my attention the most about you. Every now and then you'll get somebody who will just come out and tell you that. Most of the time people won't say that, at least not so explicitly. So it's your job to notice what it is getting people's attention about you, because there is something that's getting their attention. So it's your job to figure out what that is, pay attention to it, take note of it, and then ask yourself, all right, how can I leverage this? Because people probably won't tell you to your face what it is. There's a lot of insight there once you have it figured out. And once you start to notice it again, over time, this may change. In front of different audiences, this may change. So when I'm in front of a room of basketball players, there are certain things about me that they pick up on. But when I'm in a room full of, let's say, authors, there are certain things about me that they pick up on is not the exact same thing. So it's my job, to read the room, to notice those nonverbal cues, to notice what's not being said. And I have to really pick up on how people are perceiving me, because it's my job to figure out, because once I know how people are perceiving me, now I know how I can leverage that. Now I know how I can leverage, all right, this is the part that they're really noticing. Now let me talk about this a little bit more. That'll bring them even more into my world. So if I'm talking to a room full of basketball players, I might not talk so much about writing books, because they care about, how can I jump higher and how can I make a three-pointer? Now I'm talking to a room full of book authors. I'm not going to talk so much about making three-pointers and having a 40-inch vertical, because they don't really care. They want to know, how can I write a book? How can I finish writing my book? How can I get the cover design? How can I sell my book? How can I get people to actually read my book? How can I use my book to get a speaking gig? I'll talk more about the things that they seem to be interested in. And again, it's all relative to who else is in the room. How was I introduced? How do they even know about me? What do they know already? All of these things are insights that I need to be picking up on. I talked about insight in episode number 1177. So if you didn't listen to that episode on insight, again, that's 1177 is the key to going from 1x to 10x. And insight is really about noticing things that are not being said, asking questions that are not being asked. Not about answers, but asking the right types of questions. All the insights are there, but again, you must train yourself to really pay attention. And a lot of human beings, especially these days with these smartphones that are always begging for our attention and the notifications that have us so anxious, we are losing our ability to pay attention. Our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and unless you're able to pay attention, unless you'll be able to pick up on these insights. So that's why insight is going in the opposite direction of where your smartphone is trying to take you. So this is a skill, and it's a discipline that you must develop over time. Moving on to point number 2. The topic once again today is how to extract value from your past experiences. Number 2 thing to do, ask yourself what skills did you learn in your past experience or experiences that you would use or you are using even after you're done with that experience. For example, I played basketball. I don't play basketball anymore. What are some things that I learned in playing basketball that I still use to this day? Whatever my answer is to that question, now I'm asking myself, okay, now the people who didn't play basketball, they probably need this tool too, because I need it. Even though I'm not playing basketball anymore, I still use it. So there are people who never played basketball, they need it too. Maybe they don't have it at all. Maybe they do have it, but they're not aware of it. They're not as aware as I am because I played sports. I know I needed this specifically for sports, but I don't need it anymore. They never played sports. They don't have that experience, but they still need the tool. So maybe they're not even thinking about it at the same way that I'm thinking about it. So it's not like I'm introducing them to some brand new thing they never heard of, but I'm introducing it in a way that they never thought about it before or never needed to because they weren't where I was. You understand? So what do I talk about every day when we open the show? Discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. Are any of you only hear these concepts for the first time ever in your life when I said them? Maybe there are a few of you who said, all right, maybe I never heard anybody talk about, I never heard anybody even mention the words before you said it, Dre. But I don't think so for most of you. I think most of you have heard of them before, but you never heard anybody talk about them the way that I talk about them. You never heard anybody deliver it the way that I deliver it. You never heard anyone sprinkle them with the anecdotes and the stories and the angles and come at it from the angles from which I come from it. So it's not like I invented this brand new concept. Discipline and confidence are not brand new concepts that I created. Even though I would love to be the creator, I would trademark them and charge people to use them. But since I'm not, what is it that makes it interesting? Not because it's brand new, it's because of the approach, the way that I'm using them, and the way that I can say, all right, because I had this experience, now I can talk about it in a different way. And because, again, I'm extracting the value from past experiences, whether mine or others, and I'm putting a point and an application around the stories. You follow what I'm saying? So you see how these episodes that I'm referring you to all connect together? So the question again, and we're still on point number 2 here, what skills did you learn in a past experience that you are still using even after you're done with that experience? Those are things that people need. And again, as I said, the people who haven't been through the same experience as you, they either don't have that skill at all, or maybe they think they have the skill, but they don't know how to use the skill. They don't know why to use the skill because, again, they weren't in a situation where they needed it explicitly the way that you did, and that's where you come in and help them out. And I'm sure there are many people listening to the show who understood the concept of mental toughness before you came across Dre Baldwin and work on your game. But you didn't hear anybody talk about it the way that I talk about it, or hear someone explain it the way that I explain it, and that's what made it interesting. Not that I explained to you something that you never heard before. And it's just a little note for all the brand builders out there, people getting their name known out there. You don't necessarily want to be the first to market with a brand new concept or idea, because that requires you educating your audience and getting them to even believe that it's worth it. You might be better off grabbing onto something that already exists and people already understand the value of, and then you just having your own spin on it, your own approach to it. Was exactly what I do. All right, nothing that I talk about mindset was created by me. Actually, a few things. I got a few frameworks you've never heard before, but the overall, the high level topics, discipline, mental toughness, personal initiative, confidence, those aren't brand new. It's just my approach is brand new, and that's what makes it sell. So, for example, as an athlete, I already kind of touched on this. I needed discipline. I needed mental toughness every day. Other people who are not athletes, maybe you have those things too, but you might not quite understand how to apply it. You might not understand why to apply it. You might not understand it in a direct, conscious way, the way that I had to as an athlete. So then I step in and share with you a way that you might not have ever thought about. So since I was an athlete, I can give you stories about how I needed it as an athlete. I can give you examples. I can give you reasons. And that way, and again, this goes back to communication skill. Because I have the communication skill, I can translate my experience from the basketball court to the business world for a person who's never been on a basketball court. And they can understand it and they say, oh, this is interesting. I never heard it this way. I'm not hearing it from another business person who's telling me, how they feel and the way they look at it. I've heard that before. We talked about communication in so many episodes here on the show, but I want to refer you specifically to episode number 1264, 3 communication skills that you must master ASAP. And also episode 1257, investing in your communication skills. And one more, episode 766, the 7 biggest business communication mistakes that people make. So refer yourself to those 3 episodes and please brush up on and keep sharp your communication skills. They mean everything for you moving forward in this life and in this world. Point number 3, today's topic once again is how to extract value from your past experiences. Number 3, what did you not know before a certain experience that you now know because of that experience? In other words, what do you wish you knew beforehand? Or maybe you couldn't have known beforehand, but you're glad you know it now. What is that? What would you go back and tell your younger self? What would you tell a younger you who's stepping into the game right now? This one is proprietary to you, since only those who have the same experience as you could say the same thing as what you're saying. So this is a proprietary point right here. This is number 3. This can be utilized in 2 ways. Number 1, you can teach the next wave of X who is in the same field as you. So if you're a retired school teacher, you can teach the next wave of school teachers who are just coming into the game. You can teach them how to teach. You can teach them all the stuff that you wish you knew when you started your career 40 years ago. You can let them know about it now. That's one thing you can do, is teach the people who are coming behind you. Or another thing you can do is you can take what you learn in one field and you can translate the value from that field to another field. And this is what I do professionally. I played sports. That was the thing I was doing full time. Now I'm on the internet and I have a brand built around myself and create content. This is all a relatively new industry, what I'm doing right now. It's not even 20 years old, this industry, for the most part. But many of the people that I work with are not doing the exact thing that I'm doing. Most of the people that I work with are not basketball players trying to play pro basketball. Most people I work with, many of them are not brand builders on the internet with podcasts and YouTube channels. Some of them have some of those things, but they're not all doing the exact same thing. And that's my skill. I'm patting myself on the back with that one. That's my skill, is being able to take what I learned in those areas and help it be understood by somebody who's not even doing the exact same thing. Now, this is an extra step. I want everyone to understand. This is an extra step. So it will be much easier and a lot less work for me, at least mentally, consciously, to go talk to people who are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, just teach them how to do what I'm doing. It'd be much easier for me to just talk to basketball players how to shoot a 3-pointer and run faster and jump higher and how to play overseas, because that's exactly what I did. Just teaching people to do the same thing that I did. But what I do instead is work with people who are not even doing the same thing, because I have the ability to translate it from one area to another. And this skill becomes really valuable. Let me tell you another extra thing about that skill when you're able to translate from one field to another is you can make yourself stand out in another field simply because you're not looking like or sounding like everybody else. So if I walk into a room of small business owners who are all looking for someone to talk to them about mindset, it's one thing when they're hearing it from other small business owners who are telling them, well, here's what I do, here's what I think. Well, they already know that this person's doing the same thing that I'm doing. But when I walk in the room, I'm not coming from the same background as them. I'm coming from a sports background. And they're like, all right, well, this is interesting. This is different. Let me hear what this guy has to say. They're already listening a little bit differently simply because my background is not the same. They haven't seen this before. They haven't heard this before. And then when I give them analogies and I give my translation from the sports world to what they're doing, it hits in a different way. It lands on their ears differently simply because they're hearing it come from a completely different angle than what they're used to. And that is a valuable tool to leverage when you're stepping into a field or stepping into a room of people who haven't seen someone like you before. That's why the extra work is worth it. So any of you who's wondering, well, Dre, you're saying the extra work, why even do the extra work? Now I just explained to you why. That's why the extra work can be valuable if you have the skill of translating. And listen, I've given you the episodes right here on the show to tell you how to do this. I've explained to you the concept of frameworks. I explained to you the concept of point story application. I'm telling you right here today how to extract value from your past experiences to use it to share with other people and their experiences. And I told you about communication skills. Now, I've given you every piece that you need to actually put this together. And I can help you put the whole glue together if you want me to help you and coach you one-on-one. Well, first of all, send me a text. 305-384-6894, and then I'll tell you where we can go from there with that. Or you can just send me an email. If you can't find my email, you probably can't. I probably couldn't coach you. So all that said, we're still here on point number 3. As this is a proprietary experience, as I said, this can be utilized in 2 ways: teach the people coming behind you, or go to a completely different field. Personally, I do a little bit of both. I still teach players how to play overseas. I still have books on that. I still have books and programs for basketball players to work on their games, but also speak to and work with a lot of folks who don't have anything to do with basketball and ain't even trying to. So it's utilizing both skills at the same time, but you have options is the point that I'm making here in number 3. Point number 4, the topic once again today is how to extract value from your past experiences. Number 4, what would you teach people who are just starting at that thing right now? If you were standing in front of a room of people who are 10 years, 20 years, 50 years behind you, they are just getting started at the thing that you already have all this experience in, what are some things that you would tell them that you wish someone had told you when you first got started? Or what are some things that you would tell them that you can't wish somebody had told you because you had to have gone through the experience to learn it? So what would you tell them now that it's great that you know it now, so you can give them the game so they won't have to go through the same trials and errors that you did? What would you tell people who don't know what you know because they don't have the experience? This goes hand in hand with the point that I just made. You can make a great living, everybody, niching down and just teaching people who now sit in the seat that you used to be in. All right, there are people who do this full time. All they do is go help people who are 10 years behind them. All right, you want to do this? I've been doing it for 10 years. Let me tell you all the things you need to know. All right, that's a full-time industry. And we call that training, consulting, coaching, whatever you want to call that. That's a full-time industry for a lot of people. For some examples, a sports trainer. Many sports trainers are former athletes in that same sport. A lot of boxing trainers used to be boxers. A lot of basketball trainers used to play basketball. A lot of baseball trainers used to play baseball. All right, all they do is teach people who are 10 years behind them, 20 years behind them, and they teach them all the things that they have learned in that 20-year gap of experiential knowledge between the newbie and the coach. That's it. A lot of professional speaking coaches used to be professional speakers themselves. Actually, many of them are still speakers. They still do speaking gigs. Then they teach other people how to give speaking gigs. A lot of author coaches are authors themselves. They write their own books and they coach other people how to write books. This is the industry. Just help the people who are in the same seat that you used to be in. Listen, you can make a full-time living doing this. All you got to do is framework out and create formulas for the things that you now know that the newbies couldn't possibly know because they don't have the experience that you have. I mean, this is simple enough. I just gave somebody a job right here. I just gave you a career. All you got to do is, again, figure out what is your formula that you can teach the people, and then you got to learn how to sell it. I can help you with those too. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is how to extract value from your past experience. Now, being that you lived thousands of days so far in your life and you only get one life, how can you make sure you're getting as much value as possible from your past experiences, not just to know that you've been through them, but actually to help other people with them? Number one, ask yourself the following questions. Number one, what did or do people most admire about your past experiences or your current experiences? And now, again, people may not tell you these things explicitly, so you got to be able to read the room, notice what's not being said, notice nonverbal communication, and pick up on these things. There's a ton of insight there. Number two, what skills did you learn in your past experiences that you use even now that you're done with those experiences? Other people need those same things, and they may not be thinking about them as consciously as you are or were because they didn't go through the experience that you went through. For example, as an athlete, I needed discipline and mental toughness. Now, while everyone understands the concept, if they weren't athletes, they might not understand exactly why they need it and why it matters so much. And this is exactly what I do as a thought leadership or subject matter expert these days. Point number three, what did you not know before that you know now because of your experience? This one is proprietary to you because you have the experience. You can tell people the story. Again, the story supporting the substance. Only those with the experience can say the same thing that you said. So this can be utilized in giving back to people who are coming right behind you in the exact same area, or translating what you know to a whole other field of people who are not in the same seat that you used to sit in, but you are intriguing to them because you're different and you're coming from a different path than most of the people they're used to hearing from. You can leverage this very well. I got an episode coming on this exact point. And number four, what would you teach the people who are just starting that thing now? In other words, what do you tell somebody who's sitting in the seat that you used to be in 5 years ago? goes right along with point number 3. You can make a great living just niching down and saying, I'm going to teach people who are doing the thing that I used to do. There's a full-time industry. People do this for a living. People have been doing this for a living forever, since before any of us was even alive, such as a sports trainer. Many sports trainers used to play the sport that they're now training for. Many speaking coaches are speakers themselves. Many author coaches write books themselves. All they do is teach other people to do the exact same thing that they're doing. So there's opportunity in all these different types of fields. The biggest thing that I want you to understand from everything I've been talking about here today is this requires you to, first of all, develop the insight to notice the things that people need. Second of all, creating frameworks for explaining and teaching the things that people need so it can be duplicatable and people can understand it and follow it. And third, your communication skills. If you cannot communicate these things, whether verbally or in written format, then nobody will be able to get it. You can't get value from it. They can't get value. That's a lose-lose situation all around. And understand, I have masterclasses on every single skill that I have laid out here today that you need. So again, send me a text message. Any help that I can help you with, any episode I can refer you to, what's the best thing you got from today's episode? The number is 305-384-6894. If you have not yet claimed your free copy of my book, The Mirror of Motivation, the subtitle is The Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. I'll give you the book free. All we ask is that you cover the shipping. Go to mirrorofmotivation.com. The links to both my number to text me and to Mirror Motivation are down below in the description wherever you happen to be consuming this. Work on your game. Dre all day.